When it rains in Houston, it really rains. They've had hurricanes. Harvey in 2017 caused more than $125 billion in damage and claimed more than 100 lives. But even the storms that fall short of that benchmark can bring widespread destruction. And they each have their own character.
So the storm that hit us that day was unique, a very unique storm, and it caught everyone by surprise.
That's Bryan Pederson. He was driving to meet some work colleagues for dinner one evening when he got caught in a freak weather event.
As I started driving, I could see the trees really starting to move. My wife called me and said, "Hey, are you sure you need to go?" I said, "Sarah, I'm fine." And as soon as I said that, she heard this loud crash and she said, "Oh my gosh, are you okay? Did somebody hit you?" I was pinned. And I said, "Sarah, I don't know what had just happened." I said, "Call 911, I can't breathe."
I'm Tora Couture. Welcome to Tell Me What Happened, an original podcast by OnStar. This is a show about people helping people, specifically strangers helping strangers. Every day when you wake up, you don't know if you'll be a person who needs help or if you'll be in a position to help someone else. And sometimes, like in this story, you could be both. Bryan Pederson and his family are always on the go.
We're a very sports-focused family. Both my kids play sports. My wife played sports. We played at the collegiate level. So we're a little bit competitive.
And despite living in South Texas, their sport of choice is hockey.
Just to give you an idea of what hockey's like in Texas, in Houston specifically, there are not a lot of rinks. There's only 4 rinks in a city of 8 million. So when we have to go to hockey, it's getting your kids out of school, feed them, and then jump into Houston traffic.
To try and cut down on the driving, Bryan's son carpools with a teammate. Today, it's the other family's turn to drive the boys to practice.
The plan was to meet this family at a gas station that we always meet at, drop off my son. And then that day, I had actually had some colleagues from work that were in from the UK, and I was going to meet them for dinner because they had never really had any Texas barbecue. So I was going to go meet them about 20 minutes away for dinner.
It might sound busy, but really, it's just a typical Thursday for the Pederson family. The only thing that's noteworthy is that it's raining, and the forecast is for a storm to roll through.
You know, you'll get these big monsoon rains and they come and go and they're gone in 15 minutes. Clouds move quite quickly off the coast and into the mainland. They dump the water and then that's it. So when my son and I left, my wife was like, be careful. The weather doesn't look great. We loaded our gear and we went on our merry way. And we got to the gas station, which is about 7 minutes from my house. And the other family was waiting there.
Bryan says goodbye to his son as they transfer his hockey gear from the back of his SUV to their friend's vehicle. Then he drives off to introduce his British colleagues to some authentic Texas barbecue. He's on the edge of Houston, a single-lane road that runs through a mixed neighborhood, past some industrial properties and a couple of larger homes with big lawns. Along the way, his wife calls. She's still worried about the weather.
She goes, "Are you sure you need to go to dinner? It's really getting windy here." I said, "Sarah, it's okay. I've done this before. It's just a storm. It'll pass probably in the next 10, 15 minutes. And she said, "Okay, well, just drive really careful." So I said, "Okay, no problem."
But as he's driving, he starts to have second thoughts. The rain hasn't let up and the wind is building. He can see the treetops swinging from side to side.
Then it hit me and I'm like, you know what, this isn't worth it. I haven't seen a storm like this in a while.
So he pulls over and texts his work friends to say he won't be able to meet them for dinner.
And at the same time, my wife called me and she said, "Listen, Loretta, my daughter, who was 10 at the time, She said, Loretta is worried sick about you. She's in tears right now. She said something bad's going to happen to Dad and we need to pray for him. And I was like, well, that's not good. I reassured them. I said, I'm okay, guys. It's okay. I am turning around. I'm coming home.
He pulls out onto the road, heading back in the direction he came from. He gets to the intersection where the gas station is, the one he dropped his son off at 10 minutes ago. The light's red, so he stops. That's when his wife calls for a third time. She sees the rain and the wind whipping through the trees in their backyard. She's really worried.
And then she said, okay, where are you? I said, I'm on my way back. And she goes, well, Loretta just grabbed my hand. She said, we need to pray for Dad. And I'm just making sure you're okay. I said, Sarah, I'm fine. I'll be home in 7 minutes.
Just then, his wife and daughter hear a loud crash. A bang followed by glass shattering and metal twisting and breaking.
This tree comes crashing through the roof of my vehicle. And she's on the phone with me still. And at that point, the tree had come down on my shoulder and pushed me into the console. I was pinned. And I said, Sarah, I think a tree fell on my vehicle.
Sarah's caught between wanting to call 911 but not wanting to hang up on her husband. Meanwhile, Bryan is slowly being crushed.
The tree hadn't stopped coming down, and so I was doing my best to wiggle my way to a point that I could breathe and alleviate the console squishing into my ribs. And I said, I don't know if I'm going to make it.
This is Tell Me What Happened, a podcast created by OnStar to showcase how important a human connection is when you need help. Whether you're lost in the forest, being swept away in a river, or trapped in a car being slowly crushed by a fallen tree. A massive storm is pounding the city of Houston. Low-lying areas are filling with floodwater, loose shingles are being ripped from rooftops, and trees are being toppled. One of those trees, a giant oak tree, has landed on Bryan Pederson's SUV. He's pinned in the driver's seat. The dashboard has crumpled on top of him, crushing his chest. He's surrounded by twisted metal and shattered glass.
But the bulk of the crushing happened on the back of the vehicle. A branch came through the very back, and then it also came through the majority of the driver's side. But there was enough room there that I could squeeze between the console and the roof coming in.
But every time the wind moves the tree, it crushes the roof a little more. Inch by inch, the small space that is keeping him alive is getting smaller.
I'm just thinking in my head, okay, stay alive, figure this out. You can turn, you can twist, and just find a way to breathe.
He was on speakerphone talking to his wife when the tree fell. Despite the damage to the car, they're still connected.
As soon as the tree hit and it knocked my phone down and it pushed me down, and I'm staring now literally inches away from my phone, and I see my wife's name on the phone. And I'm like, this is the last time I'm having this conversation. And I told her I loved her.
Outside, the storm is in full force. A dozen cars are waiting at the red light behind Bryan. Behind the wheel of one of them is a single mom and her 3 kids. Her name is Veronica Marin. Veronica moved to Houston 9 years ago. In Mexico, she was a nurse, but right now she's working as a house cleaner. She speaks some English, but is more comfortable in Spanish.
Yo salí de mi trabajo a las 4:30 y ese día me fui directo al daycare de los niños. Los recogí.
Veronica says she was on her way home from picking up her kids when the storm hit.
Fue algo muy feo, muy feo. Dije, parecía que se iba a acabar el mundo.
Sitting there in a long line of cars, she sees the cars in front of her making U-turns and heading the opposite direction. As she drives forward, she sees why. A giant oak tree is blocking the entire road, and under it is a silver SUV, crushed like a pop can. Her 3 kids, aged 6, 4, and 3, are in the back seat. She tells them to stay put, then she opens her car door and steps out into the storm. Fighting the wind, she makes her way to the crushed car. The tree's branches have blocked off the driver's side.
So this woman came to the passenger side window and she hit the window, the only one left intact at this point, and she said, "Are there any kids in the back?" And I said, "No, there's no kids."
The tree shifts and drops another inch.
And she goes, "You need to get out."
Veronica grabs the door handle and pulls, but the car was in drive when the tree landed on it, so the doors are locked.
So I reached under and I hit the unlock button on the door, and she pulled on the handle, but the damage had kind of wedged the door shut. She actually ripped the handle off the vehicle.
Y pues no sé, en ese momento la adrenalina, no sé.
At this point, another driver arrives to help. His name is Travis. He sees the crumpled door will only open part way, about 1.5 feet, so he runs back to his truck to get a crowbar. The tree is still slowly coming down. Pieces of glass are raining on the seats.
Que hice, le digo, ¿cómo te llamas? ¿Cómo te llamas? Para poder distraerlo.
And she said, "You have to get out, you have to get out."
Veronica is tiny. She's 5'2". She crawls through the half-open doorway, reaches her hand around the wreckage, and undoes Bryan's seatbelt.
Which I hadn't even thought of. And she undoes that, and then she grabbed my arms and just started pulling.
She pulls as hard as she can, but Bryan is 6'7". He outweighs Veronica by more than 150 pounds. Travis returns with a crowbar and bends the door so it's fully open and he can lean inside. Then the two of them pull together. Bryan contorts himself around the center console. Slowly, he slides across the seats. With every movement, more glass falls. Finally, they drag him out onto the rain-soaked road. Bryan stands up and looks at the crumpled piece of metal that used to be his car. He looks at the back seat and realizes that if one of his kids had been in there, they wouldn't have survived. The rain is still pouring down, so Travis guides him back to his truck. Bryan climbs in, still in shock.
And I said, "Where did that woman go?" And he goes, "I don't know." He goes, I said thank you to her, and I gave her a hug, and she disappeared.
What she had done was go back to her car, comforted her frightened kids, and driven home to make them dinner.
Entonces yo me acuerdo que me subo y ya les empecé a tranquilizar. Y digo, ya pasó todo, vamos a la casa.
Bryan calls his wife, who picks him up and takes him to the hospital.
I actually had a girl come in and use this little vacuum and take all the glass out of my leg.
On the phone from the hospital, he reassures his daughter that he's okay. His son is at home too. The family driving him decided the weather was too bad, so they skipped practice and took him home.
It was really hard for me to even hear my kids' voices at that point. The magnitude of what had happened really sunk in. You don't realize how a moment changes everything. And it could be a moment that is completely not your fault. And this is a freak accident, a very bizarre freak accident. And, initially, is it unlucky? Is it, is there a bigger story, or is there a reason why it happened? And you search for that. You really do. You start thinking, why did this happen? But I'll tell you, it just changes. Not that I was ungrateful for the life I have, but it certainly changes the way that you perceive life after.
It's later that evening, and the kids are in bed. Bryan and his wife are sitting on the couch, decompressing. There's still one question circling in Bryan's mind. Who was that woman that knocked on the window, opened the door, undid my seatbelt, and helped pull me out?
It just really stuck with me. I'm like, we have to find this woman. I mean, she got me out.
Sarah posts a photo of the accident scene on social media. She explains what happened and asks if anyone can help them find the woman. But despite being reposted more than 2,000 times, they get nothing.
And it was hard because by day 3 that we had posted it, we still hadn't had any leads. But finally, by day 4, my wife comes in as I was on a conference call, and she shows me her phone. She goes, "I think we found her."
Veronica had actually seen the post the first day, but she hadn't wanted to respond. She didn't feel like a hero. Besides, she was busy working and looking after her kids. But at the urging of some friends, she relents and sends Sarah a message.
And she had said, "I think I'm the woman that you're looking for."
Later that day, they speak on the phone.
Sí, pero tu mamá me salvó la vida. Dice, sí, mi mamá sí es. Dice, mi niño, mi mamá sí es.
She said, "I'm so sorry I left. I was scared and my kids were crying and I needed to get out of there."
They agree to meet in person and decide that a nearby fire hall is a good, safe, neutral place.
So I gave her a big hug and I said, "Thank you so much."
After the tears, hugs, and thank yous, the conversation moves to other topics.
And then we got to hear her story, which was quite amazing. She's come from a lot of hardships. She's got 3 kids. She's a young single mom. She's 26. She was homeless 18 months ago, and she worked hard to get things going for her family.
It's clear to Bryan and Sarah that there is a way they can try to thank Veronica for what she's done. They arrange to visit her and bring some groceries and new clothes for her kids.
She lives in a mobile home. It wasn't in great shape. I mean, she keeps her house meticulous, and she provides a great home for her kids. But there was water damage. We could see the roof leaked. We could see that the floors had experienced a lot of water damage. They were all warped.
A friend in the construction business tells Bryan it'll cost $15,000 to fix up Veronica's home. So they set to work through their local church group and online to raise money. Bryan even goes on local TV to tell the story.
The story ran a couple times on the news. It was on their website. We went from $5,300 to like $12,000.
Then a national magazine picks up the story.
And after all was said and done, we ended up with about $66,000.
Veronica is shocked.
Y me enseña las cantidades y dije yo, Dios Padre, dije, es demasiado dinero.
She texted me and said, "Bryan, this is way too much. Tell them to stop." And I was like, the world wants to help you. I don't know what to tell you. You did something amazing, and I know you don't believe it, but it really is.
At this point, Bryan figures that fixing her current home isn't the best option. They almost have enough to buy a brand new mobile home. So he emails a local manufacturer.
The owner called me the next day, and he said, "We would love to help this woman out." And so they came to the table and they gave her a brand new home with everything warranty for $50,000. And so she still had money left over, which was even more incredible. She wants to go back to school. She wants to take care of her kids better. And this gets rid of her mobile home payment altogether. So it was just amazing how it turned out.
Veronica says the whole incident and everything that has happened since has given her a new outlook on life.
Cuando Dios te da algo, te lo da con alegrías, no añade tristezas.
She's just a giving person. She's humble. She doesn't ask for anything. She never wanted anything out of this. She hates the limelight. She doesn't like the cameras, but I think it's reinstilled her faith too.
Tú me salvaste la vida y si yo te la resolví.
I mean, I just keep going back. Yeah, I didn't do it. You did it, and the rest of the world thought it was awesome.
It took 8 weeks to make all the arrangements, transfer the money, and get the home delivered. But in the end, it was everything they had hoped for.
I got to tell you, when that home came down the street and just looking at Veronica, I couldn't keep it together. I mean, she was just elated. And, you realize how good things are when, you see somebody have so much gratitude and so much happiness. And, she said, "My kids have their dream home."
On that terrible, stormy day, 10 other people saw a massive tree sitting on top of a crushed car and decided to turn around and drive away. But Veronica decided to get out and help. And that is what the show is all about. To Veronica and all the other people who braved the storm to help others, thank you. Having a giant tree fall on top of your car is a pretty rare occurrence. But every day, all across North America, drivers find themselves in some kind of unexpected trouble. So what should you do first? Who should you call? To answer those questions and more, we've got David Bennett from AAA joining us. So David, what should I do if I'm in a collision?
Well, that's always, first thing you're freaked out. Let's face it, you're like, oh, what just happened? Make sure everybody's safe, and make sure everybody's not injured. If they are injured, call 911. Let's get some emergency vehicle out there as soon as possible. After that, what you want to go ahead and do is just assess the damage. Start taking pictures of the vehicle itself You want to go ahead and capture the vehicle information, maybe the other driver's information. But you know what? If they're irate and you're not feeling comfortable about talking to a driver, at least capture their license plate number. And then at that point, you want to go ahead and call your insurance company right away and report that damage as soon as you can. If there is no one's injured, it's a quick little fender bender or whatever, go ahead and call the non-emergency police number and have them come out and write up a report for you.
When do you call the police first versus when do you call your insurance company first?
I would call the police first, so that way they are traveling on their way to the location. And at that point, then you call your insurance company right away and just say, hey, I was just in an accident. The police are on their way. Then you start collecting that information.
If your car does need to be towed, what do you expect? How do you know where your car gets towed to? All that kind of information.
Well, that is definitely something you just never know. So that's why you could call your insurance company. They will direct you to a repair facility that they work with. And so the tow provider that comes out to help you will take it over there.
What kinds of things will the insurance company want to know?
Well, they're going to want to know all the facts. Did you get a police report? They're not going to ask if you were at fault. That's why the police are there. And that's another important point is don't admit fault in an accident to the other driver or anything else. You don't want to admit. You're just gathering facts. The police, if they show up, they can figure all that out.
It would be great to be able to prevent surprises, to minimize my chance of a breakdown, but I'm not a mechanic. So what can I do to make sure my car is road ready?
You can check your tire pressures. Check the tread of the tires. Very easy to walk around and look at those things. When you're looking at the tire pressure, you want to look at what the recommended pounds per square inch or PSI is, and you want to do that by opening the driver's door, and there's a little placard right there. And it will tell you, hey, this is what the recommended is for front and back. They may be different, so you want to take a look at that. Then also look at the tread, and how you can tell on the tread of the tires is take a quarter. Put the quarter upside down, look for Washington's head. If you can see Washington's head, that means it's time for a new set of tires. But then also don't forget about your spare tire. And right now, there's probably 25 to 30% of the vehicles on the road do not come standard with a spare tire. And people get surprised when they pull over. I don't have a spare tire? I didn't know that. I always assumed that they came with spare tires, but they don't anymore.
What about pieces of equipment you should have in your vehicle? First aid kit.
First aid kit is huge to have. Make sure the basics, some tape, Band-Aids, some ointment, things like that. Leave that in your glove box so it's easily accessible. If you're driving in the winter, make sure that you have a blanket. Carry a blanket just because you're thinking about warmth at this point. Ensure that you have some water, snacks, and if you have a pet traveling with you, make sure that you bring a little bit extra. Include them. So a couple other things, I would say a flashlight with some extra batteries, rags, paper towels, basic set of hand tools, screwdrivers, hammer, pliers, things like that, and duct tape. Let's face it, duct tape always helps, right? If anything else fails, you use a little bit of duct tape.
Well, David, thank you so much for your expertise.
Well, I appreciate you having us on here. Thank you. Have a great day.
That's it for this episode of Tell Me What Happened, true stories of people helping people. You can subscribe or follow us on whatever app you're using so you'll know as soon as our next episode launches. Until then, on behalf of OnStar, I'm Tora Couture. Please, be safe out there.